All right, everybody. Thank you guys for watching this. I am new to this, so bear with me here. I think Samuel's been on a video before like this, but I haven't. Um, so I have the massive privilege of interviewing Samuel Sey. I think I said that last name right, but we'll see. He is, as far as I know, I know him from Twitter, and we're friends on Facebook. So it's always been great to see his stuff on there. I'll let him introduce himself a little bit, and then we'll get going on a few things that he does in ministry. So I'll give it over to you, Samuel.
Thank you, man. Yeah, my name is Samuel Sey, and you did say it properly. Um, yeah, I suppose most people know me from my blog, slowtolife.com, where I blog about political, racial, cultural
Mm-hmm.
issues, including critical race theory and abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, outside of that, I'm also a pro-life advocate at CCBR, and I always prefer to say CCBR instead of the long version because it's
Right.
a mouthful. But
Yeah.
essentially, it's Canadian Center for Bioethical Reform. Nailed it. All right, yeah. No, because I normally rush through that, and it makes no sense. Um, but yeah, and then I guess people know me as as you know, so that I'm on social media
Mm-hmm.
as well. Um, Sometimes getting myself in trouble a little bit here and there.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just a little.
uh,
Every time you quote tweet something, it's always you're always waiting for somebody to pounce on you. So
basically, yeah. But yeah, that's basically what I'm about. Yeah.
good deal. Well, I'm glad to have you on. I know that you, man, I couldn't tell you when I started following you, but it seems like you just went like that really quick. At least for your following on Twitter. I mean, I think you have, I don't know, at least 30,000 followers on Twitter. So you're kind of a rising theologian on there.
Well, I don't know about theologian. I mean, well, I guess we all are. Right? We all are.
Sure.
But yeah. But then yeah, it's just yeah. I don't know. I'm just an average guy.
Yeah.
I
Right.
I just tweet a lot. I don't really. I'm not that smart, really. I just that's all.
Right.
I I always say this. I know we'll get into it, but like, by the grace of God, I put a lot of work into improving my writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can write well. You can make yourself sound a lot wiser than you really are. Because
Sure.
I tend to
Oh,
hide
yes.
my I tend to hide my intellectual weaknesses through good writing.
I
you
can't
know,
tell you how many times my wife has been like, you write so well and all of this stuff, and then you screw things up when you're just speaking to me, like you stumble over your words or you're mumbling or just speak up.
yeah. People tell me all the time that I write well, but when I speak, I sound illiterate. So I don't know what that means for you. For this
I can get
interview,
it.
since
Yeah,
but we'll see.
I love it. Oh, of course, as soon as we start the interview, the baby wakes up, but that's all right. So you mentioned the blog first. So we're gonna talk about two things. We're talking about your blogging and blogging in general. We're also going to talk about pro-life advocacy. But since you brought up blogging, we'll get to that first. So the first question I have is, when did you get started blogging, and what really inspired you to do that as well?
Hmm. Um, I started blogging well, I guess a little over, I guess almost 6 years ago now, 2015,
Mm-hmm.
and what started it at least with creating my own blog. It was Black Lives Matter, the
Mm-hmm.
riots, and
Okay. Yeah.
I know right now, I mean, naturally, a lot of people are concerned about what happened in Capitol Hill.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? 3 days now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we know that there've been a lot of riots, unfortunately, in the U.S. And elsewhere too, but especially in the U.S. for a while now. And Ferguson was really the one that really concerned me at the time because a lot of my friends were supporting that and supporting Black Lives Matter. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, what was the best way for me to reach out to them? And I thought, well, if I call everyone and just start talking to them, I might be more annoying than I really am. So I thought, let me just write an article and then share it. And then
Uh,
if they stumble on it, then they'll at least know why I am, as a black man, rejecting this. Because a lot of people we're not aware that, you know, there are other Black people who don't quite agree
Right.
with what was going on. So I thought if I could make my thoughts more visible in that sense, then
And it's not
perhaps.
just Vody Balcom. He's not the only one that thinks that way.
Yes, yeah, yeah, and it's yeah. There's Daryl Harrison, there's Virgil Walker, and so
Yeah.
many other guys. Um, so, but before that, even I always liked blogging because when I first became a Christian, blogs had a big impact on teaching me good theology. I was
Mm,
raised in a prosperity gospel church,
okay.
and blogs and YouTube, but blogs especially helped me understand that the prosperity gospel was a false gospel, and then I learned Reformed theology through a lot of blogs, including John MacArthur's blog at
Sure.
Grace to You, and then Phil Johnson's blog at Pyromaniacs, and
Hmm.
so many other great blogs as well. And then when I left, eventually the Prosperity Gospel Church, similar idea happened where people were asking me, Sam, why did you leave the church? Because I was very dedicated to that church and was surprised that I would leave, especially since I just been saved in that church for 2 years right before that.
Hmm.
So I thought again, let me just write in an article to explain why the prosperity gospel is false. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but Facebook, no one uses it now, but Facebook has their own kind of a blog where it's like Facebook Notes.
Yep.
And at
Yep.
the time, I didn't have access to a blog, so I just shared it on Facebook, and it kind of went viral. Um, so he will not remember this, but I know that Justin Peters actually saw it at the time,
Mm,
and he is one of my heroes, and he
yeah.
commented on it. Hey, good article. I was like, whoa,
Woo.
what? Justin Peters?
Right.
Yeah,
Am I
um,
dreaming?
exactly. So it was able to. So my friends saw it and they shared it, across, different spaces, and so it went through my little circle in Canada, then America, and then some in the UK, and I became good friends with a lot of like-minded people in the US and UK, which I suppose kind of led to me being more known now, I suppose, outside of
Hmm.
my little circle here in Canada as well.
Now you're good friends with. I'm blanking on his name. Challies. You're good friends with Tim Challies, aren't you?
Yes, yeah,
So how
he
did you
played.
did? How do you? Yeah. How did you meet him?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that actually because he played a big role in my writing. So he's my pastor as well, and my
Okay.
mentor.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So when I joined his church, he took me under his wing to become his intern for his blog,
Mm,
and uh, that was incredible. That was one of the best summer jobs I ever had. So it was just for like a few months, but it was incredible. I learned a
busy
lot.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then after that, a couple of years after, well, not a couple of years, a few more years after that, but he had a writing class where he knew this is after I created my blog, and he wanted to help out guys like myself to just get better at writing. And yeah, I've learned a lot about writing. He gave me books to read. There's a book called On Writing Well by
Hmm.
Williams. I'm forgetting his last name.
Yeah.
Some German guy. But um, it's yeah, yeah. So he's been extremely helpful, and then he would help me edit my articles. I still struggle with editing my articles properly. I'm a guy. I finish writing. I just want to publish and leave it.
Uh-huh.
But
Yep.
uh, yeah, he's edited a lot of my articles for me. He's been yeah, incredible, just kind, um, just good friend, good pastor, good mentor to me.
I can really resonate with the getting your blog out there really quickly because that's my biggest thing. Like I'll get an idea in my head, or I'll see something, or it'll be something from scripture, and I'll type it out really quickly, and then I'll publish it. Like even today. So yesterday I wrote a blog on blogging, and Challies, thankfully, every time, not every time, but he picked it up, and so it's booming. And I look at it and I see a typo. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I go in there real quick and I edit it. I'm like, okay, make sure nobody saw that, but I'm sure some did. I'm surprised he shared it with a typo, but okay.
Well, let me tell you this. Yeah. So this earlier this week, I shared a book review of I don't know if you know Nate Pickowitz, but he wrote a great book.
Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Reading
Oh
it right
nice,
now.
nice.
Yep.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, as you know, it's a good book. And oh, man, I was very busy that day, and I wanted to get it out because the book came out officially on that day.
Hmm.
Um, so I wrote it, publish it. I go off and I'm doing other things for the day, and then I get a text from a friend of mine that he just circled. And this friend of mine,
Yeah.
he's the kind of guy he loves to find. It's his job. It's his job in life to just
Hmm.
find any typo, and then he just says, "Got you again." And yeah, he just shared it. But the worst thing was, it wasn't just a typo. It was clearly I had I mean, I don't know how it happened, but I had put a paragraph in the wrong place, and it was very
Oh,
noticeable. It was very
so it
noticeable.
made no
Yes,
sense, right?
it made no sense. Um, but it had been up for like 3, 4 hours by that point, so I
Oh,
don't know how. I know, and that was just. I felt horrible. I had to apologize. I sent a message to Nate Pickowitz saying, "Hey, I'm sorry.
yeah.
I just that was bad." And then he's like, "Oh," it's like, yeah, I saw a few mistakes, but it's okay. I even saw one where you got my name wrong too." I'm like, "Really? Oh." So I
Oh,
have to go
yeah.
back
It's
and
like, oh, I
fix
feel like a
that. And
jerk.
yeah, no, but yeah, yeah. So yeah, that happens. Unfortunately, so I need to just be more slow to write, and be patient,
Yeah.
because normally
Yeah.
I'm sure you write. For me, it takes a while for me to write and to get everything done, and I'm
Hmm.
tired by that point. So when I'm really tired, I just want to publish it, but
Yep.
I gotta find a way
Absolutely.
to write in articles days before, so that I can let it simmer some more and take some time to read through it,
Absolutely.
and be really more slow to write, so then I could share it after I've looked through everything.
It's like you get it done really quickly and then you want to publish it and you have to tell yourself, my blog is called Slow to Write. So let's let's abide
Yes,
by that name.
yes,
Um,
yes.
that's awesome. So when you began your blog, and maybe even now, because we're all human, we all struggle with this stuff, but do you ever struggle with anybody even caring to read it? I mean, I know you have, you know, tens upon thousands of followers on Twitter, and you have people who follow you on Facebook, so people are reading it. Every day people are going to read your blog. But I guess maybe as you began, did you ever struggle with that?
Yeah, of course. Well, it's funny. I struggle more with that now than probably in the beginning.
Hmm.
To be honest, yeah. In the beginning, I wasn't. I did not expect. I still don't know how I got to this point. Um, I didn't expect more than maybe 20 people on Facebook
Yeah.
reading the article. I didn't expect that at all. So to me, I'm like, hey, people read it. I see a comment or two. I'm very
Yeah.
happy.
Sure.
Then when you start to gain an audience, then you get used to the average share, the average reads or visits. And
Hmm.
then, when you're getting like 100 shares generally an article, and then maybe for a couple of weeks or two, you get only 20 shares. They start thinking, oh, what's wrong?
Oh,
What
what
happened?
I do wrong? Right.
It can be very, um, you see your pride a lot through this. It's
Yeah.
actually really good for my
Goodness, yes.
um, realizing, and also just being competitive sometimes, being
Hmm.
jealous when people are doing better than I am.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I doing? Why? I'm incredibly blessed. Why I cry out to God, say, I'm not grateful, Lord. Make
Right.
me humble, make me more grateful. Um, but so because of that, I now I check my Google Analytics, check the data just maybe
Hmm.
twice a year, maybe beginning of the year, and then, well, sorry, the middle of the year, and then the end of the year, just that. But I don't want to think about that.
Yeah.
Um, I just want to write, and then I'll look at the shares, but sometimes it's just helpful just to know what people are relating to. But yeah, it can be difficult, in many ways, just knowing how your heart, because sometimes
Hmm.
too, because you write an article that you think is gonna do so great. Oh yeah,
And
this
then
is gonna
nobody reads it. Right.
There's,
Yep,
there's like
I get
what?
it.
And then you write an article where you're like, you know what? You have a schedule. You write the article, move on. You're gonna read it, and then that one does well. You're like, what is going on here?
Hmm.
So, you just got to be faithful in writing, and then whatever God does with it, that's
Yeah,
what He will do.
absolutely. That was in that blog I wrote yesterday. Part of it was, and this is really with life, anyways. But like, there's that sports analogy of don't get too high, don't get too low, in regards to your platform or in regards to how many people are reading it. So there are times when I started blogging probably 2 or 3 years ago, and
Mm.
I still struggle every day with how many people read it. There can be many times I focus far too much on how many views it's gotten, and so on and so forth. And so in those times, it's like you can't get too low on if it only has 10 views or something like that. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you can't get too high, you can't get too full of yourself if you're Samuel Sey and getting $10,000 a blog. So it's kind of one of those things where you have to daily ask God to humble yourself so you're even kill, you know. And it goes back to the motivation of why you're writing the blog in the first place. um,
Yeah.
Even if I'd be discouraged by it, I would still write my blog, even if nobody read it, just because we simply love to write.
Hmm. And it's interesting. You mentioned that it's funny. I've wrestled with why I said that. Why did I tell people that?
The views, yeah.
Um, yeah, you know, I think because remember I hadn't seen it for a while. Like my numbers, I was like, oh, I'm
Hmm.
surprised.
Yeah.
Um, and I knew I was doing better than the years, than the previous years. You didn't know it was like that, but I struggled with it because at the time I was, I knew I was struggling with, man, I want to do better. So then I thought to myself, am I saying this as a way for people to say, yeah, you're doing great? Or am I saying this because I'm genuinely grateful and I'm letting people know, hey,
Right.
I'm grateful for for reading my blog and stuff. And I mentioned that to say, these are the kind of things that you struggle with when you're doing things in a public manner, right? When
Right.
you're blogging, podcasting, that you always have to be checking yourself
Hmm.
because it's very easy to be always um, looking at the numbers and wanting,
Yeah.
uh, you know, people to know that and they can think, hey, you're accomplishing something, you're special, something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's again, blogging honestly has been easily one of the most sanctifying things for me. Just seeing my sins and my pride and my
Yeah.
selfishness. Um, so anyway.
Yeah. It definitely reveals a lot, that's for sure, with all of us. But there's more questions on the blogging aspect, but we'll skip by those because I want to also get into the pro life stuff. So I know probably most people who are going to watch this know what it means, but could you tell me what it means to be pro life?
Mhm. These days, that's a very good question. um, it disturbs me that a lot of people want to co-opt what it means to be pro-life, including
Mhm.
coming from many Christians who are well-meaning
Sure.
sometimes. But um, to be pro-life really means that you are against abortion, that you think that abortion should be illegal, that you believe that babies are made in the image of God and they're deserving of human rights the exact same way every single human deserves human rights. So that's what it means to be pro-life. A lot of people these days believe that to be pro-life means that you have to essentially embrace socialism and a number of other things. But no, being pro-life means that you're actively, um, recognizing whether in your prayers, in basically, you're taking all thoughts captive to Christ
Right.
as it deals with agreeing with Him that preborn babies deserve the right to live. That's how
Yeah,
I would.
absolutely. And it's one of those, you say it's a co-opt, and I think of it as a maybe false dichotomy is the phrase, but people talk about how pro-life means being pro-life from womb to tomb. Well, yes, any Christian will also be pro-life for people who are alive. that's not really historically, traditionally speaking, pro-life means. And so it is, just like you've been saying, it is kind of a cop out to say that, because we're talking, when we say we're pro-life, we're talking about the unborn children and what they've been going through. And that brings me to talk about how in Oklahoma, I live hour and a half southeast from Oklahoma City. And it's actually this year, for the third straight year, that there is a senator, Oklahoma senator, that is in the abolition of abortion camp, or so to speak, or something like that. And they will put forward a bill that calls for the abolition of abortion for third straight year. It's likely not to pass again, but I bring it up to say that there's been this almost competition between abolitionists, and you probably know what I'm talking about, but abolitionists and then incrementalists.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, it's just silly. Like,
Yeah.
of course, I want abortion abolished. I want it. I want to see it gone.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be legal.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm not going to praise for when people pass a heartbeat bill or whatever, anything that at least restricts it in some aspect. So give me your thoughts on that situation.
Yeah, I would love to. If you don't mind, before I answer that, so you're saying that your senator is an abolitionist?
Yeah.
Wow. I need to know
Warren
more about him.
Hamilton, I believe, is his name.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Wow. That's it. I praise God. I mean,
Sure.
there are some concerns, given, from what I understand, from what what you said,
Mm-hmm.
not wanting to anything outside of,
Right.
uh, you know, what you just, I guess, an abolitionist law. But um, the fact that he is that pro-life, that he's adamant that he wants that, I praise God for that. That he wants to end all abortion. Anyway, with that being said, yeah, I have no problem referring to myself as an abolitionist, because I want to end abortion. I want to end
Sure.
all abortion. There's no justification for abortion ever. But I am willing to do everything I can to save children. If I cannot, if it's impossible for me to save all babies right now, but it's possible for me to save some babies right now, I absolutely have to do it.
Yep.
Um, to be honest with you, my struggle sometimes is it, I have to watch myself here, but is it, I struggle to think of, uh, I think of, I'm trying to watch my words here because, again, I have
Sure.
friends in the abolitionists I love, but I struggle with the concept that it's okay to allow some babies to die or to be killed
Mm-hmm.
because you cannot save them all. I
Right.
just cannot. Look,
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. This is a horrible example, but God forbid I'm ever in a situation. But if I'm forced and to save, if some of my relatives instead
Mm-hmm.
of all of my relatives, or sorry, instead of none of my relatives, I would hate to be in that position. I'd
Mm-hmm.
rather die so they would live.
Right.
Ever. You're telling me that I can either save one or two instead of maybe saving, 20, or sorry, instead of saving none at all.
Mm-hmm.
I will save as many as I can.
Right.
That's what I will have to do. Um, so so anyways, I'm an abolitionist in the sense that yes, I want to end abortion, but I'm an incrementalist, absolutely, in that I'm willing to do everything I can to save as many as I can now,
Mm-hmm.
while I pray to God and I do whatever I can to get to the point where I can be an abolitionist.
Sure. Absolutely. I agree with every last bit. I mean, what you just said. And you actually answered a question I was about to ask you. You talked about how it's never okay to abort a child. We talk about this kind of all intersects. We have pro-life senators, politicians who are pro-life, but still say if it's rape, if it's incest, if it's the life of the mother, so on and so forth, then it's okay. And I guess that's kind of the argument with the incremental approach and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just like you said, it's never okay to abort a child. There's never a huge instance for that. Um, so without going down the rabbit hole of why that's still not okay, um, as we conclude this, because I think we might be running out of time. But so, as being a pro-lifer, and you're in Canada, I'm in the U.S., of course, so it's a little bit different. Um, but what is the best piece of advice you have for being pro-life in the culture of death? I mean, we both deal with this, even though we're technically in different countries.
Yeah. Um, hmm. Do whatever is biblically and righteously necessary to save babies. Um, One of the things that we do at CCBR is we show people what happens to babies when they get aborted. We show people aborted babies,
Mm-hmm.
and people struggle with that. It's hard for
Sure.
them to see that, and I'm glad. I don't want people to see that and just not
Right.
care.
Yeah.
It's hard for. I've been around these images for 2 years now. That's how long I've been in the pro-life movement, and I hate seeing that. I hate it with passion. But as much as I can, I try to watch it or look at them every chance I get, because it reminds us that these are babies. These are
Yeah.
not just, no, fetus just means a baby, but the word fetus is a way to just make them sound anything other than a baby.
Sure.
um, but they are babies, and you see that in these images, and every time we're out there and people see this stuff, we know, even when they don't always come out to talk to us, we know that from our research too, that they develop more negative feelings about abortion. And many of them, we've had testimonies of many women. There's one, especially there's one woman who was going to an abortion clinic with her boyfriend, and then she stumbled on our image, and then right then and there she said, "I cannot do this to my baby," and then
Good.
her baby was saved from
Praise God.
being murdered. So that's a very important. Use images, use human rights arguments, use
Mm-hmm.
philosophy, use science, use everything. And yet, we also know that we need the gospel. The gospel is crucial in not just saving babies, but saving souls, right? If people come to know that indeed that all people are made in the image of God, and not just that, by the grace of God, they can be made in the image of Christ by believing the gospel, by trusting the gospel. um, they're going to know that their babies are a blessing from God, and they're not
Yep.
want to kill their babies. So we need the gospel. That's crucial. That's the center of everything. And then through that, we need all the other arguments that we can use to reach them where they're at. Because if someone is already an unbeliever and they're going to reject the gospel, all
Mm-hmm.
right, that's horrible, but fine. I'll allow you, I suppose, to not believe the gospel, but I'm still going to try and use every
Right.
means to get you to not reject that your baby is indeed a baby.
Yep. I love that you said that. That is the foundational thing. I won't tell the name of the ministry, although because I don't want to accuse them of this, but sometimes it comes across this way. Putting two and two together, you might know what I'm talking about. But there's this very well-known ministry who has a ministry that is strictly about abortion. And I love the ministry to death. The pastor who heads it up, all those guys, they're great people, but they toe the line of focusing too much on abortion rather than making sure the gospel gets to the people as well. We can go to the abortion clinic, we can save 2 or 3 babies, and we can go home and hang our hats on the door and say that was a great day. But we also can't say they're still heading for hell. We didn't preach the gospel to them. We didn't do this and that. It's, yes, just like you said, it's still a win if we save babies, yet if they remain unconverted. But the biggest goal is preaching the gospel to these people so that abortion isn't even a consideration in the first place. So I really am glad that you said that. Of course, I think my Zoom is about to stop here, but um, I really appreciated you getting on. in your busy day. I am not having a busy day. My child just woke up from a nap, and I think I might not be doing anything else for the day. But I really enjoyed the conversation, and it was really great to meet you. Just tell me a little bit, just again, where you're at, like on social media, so people can, if they're not already following you, how they can follow you.
Thank you, and I appreciate your patience. Maybe the audience won't know the backstory, but you've been extremely patient with me, and I appreciate that. Um, but yeah, they can find me on slaughterright.com, my blog. They can find me on at slaughterright on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Parlor, because everyone is
Oh,
jumping on
Parlor.
Parler
Yeah,
these days. I know. And then if people, if they read my stuff and they want to support me on Patreon as well, they can as well too.
sure.
But yeah, I don't want to cut off while we're still here. So I appreciate you, man. I'm so sorry. I know I was a bit late
No,
too,
no,
even.
you're good. You're good.
Okay.
I had nothing to do in the world but wait, so it was all right.
All right, man. Then,
All right,
yeah.
man. See ya. Good to meet you.